Hi and welcome to my English channel. Are you learning English? That's awesome. Let's learn English together through some exciting stories. But first, tell me, which country are you watching from? I'd love to know how far this message has reached. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Alright, let's get started.
My name is David. I am 35 years old, and I live with my wife, Emily, in a beautiful house in the suburbs of Seattle, Washington. Our neighborhood is quiet and clean, with tall maple trees and friendly neighbors who wave every morning. When the sunlight comes through our big window, the whole house feels warm and peaceful. To anyone looking from the outside, my life seems perfect, like the classic American dream. Every morning, Emily wakes up before me. I can hear her soft footsteps as she goes to the kitchen. She always prepares a hot breakfast for me: eggs, toast, sometimes fresh fruit. She also makes my coffee exactly the way I like it, not too bitter, not too sweet, just a little creamy. When I come downstairs, she greets me with a warm smile. Before I leave for work, Emily always puts a small note inside my lunch bag. Every day, the message is simple but full of love: have a great day. I love you. She does this without missing a single morning. To everyone around us, I look like the luckiest man in the world. My friends say things like, "David, you have everything: a good job, a nice home, and a perfect wife." I always smile and agree with them. I say, yes, I'm really lucky. But the truth lives quietly in my heart. I do not love Emily. I appreciate her kindness. I respect her goodness. But love, real love, it is not there inside me. Every day, I put on a mask. I act like the loving husband she believes I am. I try to smile the way she expects. I try to speak the words she wants to hear. But deep inside, I feel heavy. Every day, the role I play becomes harder. And the perfect life everyone sees is only a perfect lie. For years ago, my life was completely different. I lived in Los Angeles back then, and I was the owner of a small startup company. I worked day and night, believing that one day my company would grow and become successful. I had dreams, plans, and a little bit of confidence. For a short time, I even thought I was on the right path. But everything fell apart. First, I lost my money. Then I lost the company itself. The people I called friends slowly disappeared from my life. Some stopped answering my calls. Others pretended they were too busy. When my bank account went empty, I lost my apartment too. I had nothing left. So I slept in my old car, parked under a highway bridge. The nights were cold, and the noise of cars above me never stopped. I ate cheap sandwiches from convenience stores because that was all I could afford. My body became thinner, and my spirit became darker every day. I woke up each morning wondering how a life could fall apart so quickly. At that time, I believed my life was truly over. I felt invisible, like no one in that huge city would ever care if I disappeared. One cold evening, I couldn't take the freezing wind anymore, so I walked into a small cafe to warm myself. The cafe was quiet, with soft lights and the smell of fresh coffee. I sat in the corner, hoping no one would notice me. But she did. Emily, though I didn't know her name yet, walked over to my table. She had gentle eyes and a soft, warm voice. She looked at me for a moment, then asked quietly, "Are you okay?" I wanted to say, yes, and keep everything inside, but something in her voice made me open up. For the first time in months, I talked. I told her about my failures, my loneliness, and everything I had lost. Emily listened without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, she walked to the kitchen and returned with a large plate of food. She put it in front of me and said, "You need this. Sometimes we all need a little help." That was the first moment I felt seen again. And it was the moment Emily entered my life. After that night in the cafe, I started going there every day. At first, it was just to eat a warm meal, but soon it became the only place where I felt safe. Emily always greeted me with a gentle smile. She asked how I was doing, and she listened carefully when I spoke. No one had listened to me like that in a long time. Slowly, our conversations grew longer. We talked about small things, music, the weather, memories from childhood. Sometimes she made jokes, and for the first time in months, I actually laughed. Every time I walked into the cafe, I felt a little less alone. Emily did more than just talk. She helped me get my life back. She found me a cheap room to rent in a small neighborhood outside the city. The room was old and tiny, but to me, it felt like a brand new start. She also helped me search for jobs and even practiced interview questions with me. Thanks to her, I found a simple job at a warehouse. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to stand up again. Back then, Emily felt like a guardian angel, someone sent to save me when I had nothing left. I didn't understand my emotions clearly. All I knew was that I felt deeply connected to her, deeply grateful. And slowly, I confused that gratitude with love. I believed I loved her. One afternoon, after I had finally stabilized my life a little, we took a walk in a quiet park in San Diego. The sky was bright, and the ocean wind was soft. Emily walked beside me, smiling at the dogs running on the grass. My heart was full, not of love, but of a kind of desperate thankfulness. In that moment, without thinking clearly, I stopped walking, turned to her, and said the words, "Emily, will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears. She nodded, shaking with happiness. A few months later, we packed our things and moved to Seattle for a fresh start, a new city, a new home, a new life as husband and wife. I told myself I had done the right thing. I believed love would come later. But I was wrong. Now, our life in Seattle was stable. I had a good job, a steady income, and a comfortable home. Friends and neighbors admired our life. They said, "David, you are so lucky. Look at everything you have." And outwardly, I could smile and nod. I could play the part of the happy husband. But inside, my heart was empty. Emily loved me with all her heart. She never stopped caring for me. Every morning, she would make breakfast, pack my lunch, and leave little notes in my bag. She remembered my favorite coffee and always made it just right. She laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones, and tried to make every day a little brighter. I watched her love me and felt trapped. It was as if I were living in a beautiful cage, made of gold but still a cage. Every kind word, every hug, every act of love was a new bar in the cage. The more she gave, the heavier my guilt became. I wanted to love her. I tried. But the feeling just wasn't there. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't feel the way she deserved to be loved. I began to fear every smile, every touch, and every kind word. One week, I got a high fever and had to stay in bed for 3 days. Emily didn't leave my side. She stayed home from work, brought me soup and medicine, read stories to me, and whispered comforting words. She watched over me with so much care and tenderness that it was almost unbearable. I lay there, weak and sweating, and I realized how much I owed her. How much she had given me without asking for anything in return. And yet, I had nothing to give her back. No love. Only gratitude, guilt, and fear. It was a cruel irony. The very love that should have made life beautiful for me only made me feel more trapped, more hopeless. And the worst part? I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't continue living a lie. Every heartbeat reminded me that one day, this golden cage might break us both. That evening, Emily had prepared my favorite dinner. The house smelled of roasted chicken and fresh bread. Candles flickered on the table, and soft music played in the background. The room looked perfect, warm, and filled with love. Emily had gone out of her way to make everything special. She smiled as she held my hand across the table. Her eyes were bright, full of hope and excitement. She looked at me and said softly, "David, I think we're ready. Let's have a baby." Her words hit me like a brick wall. My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at her, her face glowing in the candlelight, full of trust, dreams, and love. And I realized something terrifying: a child would trap me forever in this life I didn't want. I felt frozen. I couldn't imagine bringing a baby into a life built on a lie. Emily deserved a husband who could love her completely, not someone who felt trapped, confused, and empty. She deserved real love, not my gratitude, not my guilt, not my polite smiles. I looked at her hands holding mine, her fingers warm and steady, and I felt my throat tighten. She was dreaming of a family, dreaming of a life that I couldn't give her. Every hope in her eyes made me feel like a criminal. For years, I had acted as her husband. I had smiled at her notes, laughed at her jokes, and gone through the motions of happiness. I had performed love. But now the truth was pressing down on me with unbearable weight. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I knew that if I stayed silent, I would be condemning her, and the child, to a life without real love. I couldn't do it. I couldn't continue to be the man she believed I was. Tears welled up in my eyes as I whispered to myself, "She deserves better. She deserves love, not a life built on my mistakes." I had no choice. The lie had to end. I had to tell her the truth. It would break her heart. It would shatter our life. But a painful truth was better than a beautiful lie. I took a deep breath, my whole body trembling. I looked at Emily again, her face so full of hope, and I knew this was the final moment, the moment everything would change. I had to speak. I opened my mouth to speak. The words were heavy on my tongue. This was the moment that would define the rest of our lives. My mind raced, imagining her reaction, the heartbreak, the anger, the sadness. Yet, I also imagined her free from a lie, finally able to find the real love she deserved. And in that quiet, heavy moment, I realized 3 important lessons about life, love, and myself. 1. Gratitude is not love. I had confused deep thankfulness for genuine love. Helping someone does not always create romantic feelings, and pretending it does only leads to pain. 2. Honesty, even when it hurts, is always better than a beautiful lie. I understood that protecting someone from the truth for comfort's sake only traps them in a cage. Real love requires courage and truth. 3. True love cannot be forced or bought. I had tried to repay Emily with a life I thought she deserved. But love cannot be earned with gifts, attention, or protection. It must come from the heart. Pretending only causes guilt and suffering. I looked at Emily one last time before speaking, my heart pounding. I knew what I had to do. I had to be honest. I had to free both of us, even if it meant breaking everything we had built together. The future was uncertain, and the truth would hurt, but it was the only way to live authentically. And so, with a trembling voice and a heavy heart, I began to speak the words that would change our lives forever.
Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it and learned something new, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. Maybe they need a little reminder to be brave and kind too. And if you love stories like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Every week, we share new English stories that are simple, beautiful, and full of life lessons. Stories that help you learn English naturally while touching your heart. Remember, learning English doesn't have to be hard. It can be peaceful, meaningful, and fun, one story at a time. So, see you in the next video, and until then, keep learning, keep smiling, and keep being kind.